My name's Tyler. I think I had the pleasure to meet most of you all guys already, but welcome to the space. Is it anybody's first time here tonight? Couple. Nice. Welcome. Welcome. So this is our recurring monthly technical mining operations meetup with our founding sponsor and partner, Compass Mining. We're excited to kick that off. Just a little bit quickly here about the space, though. We are an education-focused Bitcoin hub here in the Rocky Mountain, western area of the United States, and we have monthly education meetups every week, actually. So every Thursday this month is an education open to the public meetup from Bitcoin basics, maybe bring your spouse if you can convince her, all the way to in the weeds deep dives during bit devs, obviously this mining meetup, and some intermediate workshops and stuff like that as well, just working with hardware wallets, things like that. So we're working on some big stuff coming up in Q1. Hope to have some Bitcoin beacon shining light during ETH Denver during February, end of February, so stay tuned for that, as well as some mining-focused stuff on home mining and heat reuse in the end of February as well. You can find any info on what events we have going on at our website, which is denver.space. And then this is a member-run organization, so the members make this possible. The members vote on leadership. We'll have that process coming up in April in Q2. So this is not owned by a single entity, not owned by a company, not owned by one guy. It's a group, it's the community, it's the strong Bitcoin ethos out here that makes this all possible. Member dues and our founding sponsors and supporters are what makes this thing go. So if you want to donate or support us, you can reach out to us. You can email contact@denver.space or go to donate.denver.space and support us that way. We also do co-working and a lot of social member benefits during the day as well, happy hours. We've really gotten to know each other quite well, which is super special. But enough about us. Tonight is all about, what, block templates, guys? Is that what we're talking about?
We got some ancillary topics.
Ancillary topics. It's Rob, Warren, and Tatum, so you don't know what you're getting into. But we're gonna learn some good stuff tonight. I'll pass this mic off, and thanks for being here, guys.
So I'm a start on time, end on time kind of guy, and we're already about 12 minutes behind schedule. I just want to touch on some housekeeping stuff, right? So we've got plenty of food and plenty of beverages. If you're empty, run out. It wouldn't hurt my feelings for you to eat a taco while we're sitting here. The food will be here when we're done. We'll have the venue for a little bit longer after we wrap up. Thank you for being here. This is our third month having this meetup. The first month was the launch. The room was packed, and it's winter in Denver, and we know that we expected like attendance to drop off. We are in a building phase because like this meetup was only able to launch because the space launched. And to look out here and to see 20 people in the audience, there's a few more people next door, is amazing. Something else I want to point out that I didn't even realize the first time that I was sitting here is there's 800 people watching online. This is being broadcast live on Twitter Spaces. Sometimes it takes a little bit for that audience to creep up, and there'll be more people at the end than there are right now. So that's impressive. You got this secondary audience. I am going to introduce my guests. We'll give them a chance to say more about themselves, but it's Rob Warren and Tatum Cave. There's two people I've actually been able to learn a lot from and get to know, and it's my pleasure that they're here as our guests. I'll click through a couple slides, and then my goal is to do less talking and give them the floor. A little bit of the agenda. We've already kind of touched the welcome and announcements. The reason we're doing technical mining operations is that the Bitcoin meetup scene across the country is vibrant. Where you guys are showing up at a Bitcoin meetup is crucial to Bitcoin adoption, but there wasn't anyone building a meetup that it served a community of folks who really knew how to plug in 1,000 miners. So the people who honestly knew the ins and outs of Bitcoin mining. So Compass Mining, we have a large warehouse, our facility, we do repairs, we do logistics. We have a large employee base in Denver, and then coupled with the space launching, this was the right place for us to be. Because I'm passionate about people working in Bitcoin mining, I like to share a couple hot mining jobs, and then we'll get into the topic. So I'll run through those. And I do think as Compass has openings, it's smart of me to put those up. We are currently hiring for a data center technician in Oklahoma. If you guys haven't seen our Oklahoma site, we're very proud of it. It's one of our operations where we're operating for another third party. We're proud of that. There's a job available. Here's a job that's available right here in Denver. This is a repair support specialist for NovoMod. This is off of Indeed. You'd be able to find it there. It's pretty straightforward. So a Bitcoin mining repair specialist job right here in Denver. And this one I like. So this is Black Creek Digital. I wasn't familiar with Black Creek Digital, but down at the bottom under requirements, I think look at the requirements. It's pretty base level. A willingness to show up on time and work hard, and 2 years of experience in an IT role. The barrier to entry to working in Bitcoin mining is incredibly low. If you've got that base level of experience, there is a role for you to play. So enough of me with welcome. We are going to try to have 2 major topics. I think that these guys are actually very excited about both of the topics. So before we hop right into block template construction, for the benefit of the online audience, Rob and Tatum, because I know this group has seen you before, would you guys do a brief introduction and then let me pose a question to start the conversation? Tatum, will you go first? I'm going to give this mic to Rob.
Hey, I'm Tatum Cave, also known as Tatum Turnip. I am a field deployment technician at Compass Mining based here in Denver. Also the host of Between Two A6 and soon to be the Tatum Turnip Show. And I somehow accidentally got a passion for mining on the protocol level, so we're going to nerd out, but we're going to have fun doing it. So,
love it. When's the next episode coming out?
It's going to be a completely different show in Q3. This is it. This is actually. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Surprise, guys.
Anyway, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Robert Warren. I am woefully underqualified to be in Bitcoin, but nonetheless have been in the space since about 2017 and then working full-time in it since right around 2020, and have been working predominantly on a lot of the fiddling and experimentation and resulting education that happens when we're all kind of figuring this thing out together. And from there have worked with a number of companies in the space, have set up a mine, and have some fun stuff coming at the end of January that I can't announce yet.
Why are you looking
this
at
is
me
the, because I'm about to make a Dennis Porter announcement of the announcement. That
I'm David Bailey
I
in this
am
situation.
announcing that I will have an announcement at the end of January. So, however, if anybody would like to pay me 3 Bitcoin, I will tell you. I will just tell you if you do that.
What y'all don't know is that right after he announces it, I'm going to announce it and claim that it was mine. I really hope that I don't get in trouble for saying that.
This is going to be an episode of Between Two
Gentlemen,
A6s.
thank you for your introductions. I want to point out humbleness. The longer you're in Bitcoin, the more humble you become. And I'm a dad of 5 kids, and when Rob and I first got a chance to really get to know each other, I was blown away at the level of engagement and interaction that man has raising his family. My oldest son's 20, down to my youngest daughter's 9. I was taking parenting lessons from him, so thankful to call these gentlemen friends. Guys, I know that you're capable of engaging in this conversation on your own, so would you please help me with this question? If you're like living in the world of a Bitcoin mine, you're not the executive, you're not the chief strategy officer, you're not the CTO. If you're plugging in mines, are you paying attention to block template construction? How are you thinking about it? How does this impact anything that's going on out in the field? If you would take that simple question and then let that spur a little bit of this conversation.
So I actually am one of the guys who is plugging in thousands of miners, and then sometimes unplugging them and plugging them right back in. It's great. No, you don't need to know about this, but sometimes it'll just overtake you with the stupid rabbit hole that is Bitcoin mining. But there is a level of it that does affect operations because there is different. Mining is a profit business for some companies, and that's subjectively speaking. But if you're mining, you're wanting to make sure that you are generating the most Bitcoin that you can for what you're spending. and different pools offer different payout structures or different fees, different probabilities of a daily income. And for a lot of people, for a vast majority of the mining industry, that's what they primarily look at. And it's not an ethos thing for them, it is a money thing, which there's nothing wrong with it by any means, but it does change your image, I think, in the eyes of some of the, I guess, more cypherpunky Bitcoiners, which it's whenever you show that you are mining to a pool that is actively censoring transactions from addresses, how much do you really want to support that company as a Bitcoiner, or are you looking at it more as a profit? But
Tatum, you just cracked open the rabbit hole.
I'm sorry.
You blew that. You put a hand.
I just started
right
talking.
in there.
I don't even know what I said. I
Let's
kind
go
of blacked
for
out
it.
right there for a
I
little
think
bit.
it's a really good question, and I think the way I like to think about it, because I'm a first principles dude. I want to. This is a startup ecosystem. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you. If they tell you they've been mining for 10 years, but they stopped 5 years ago, then rest assured, 100% of everything they know is obsolete. Even if they've only been mining for 2.5 years, a lot of that's going to be obsolete. Just from the change in miners going from single phase to 3-phase.
So much happens so quick.
Mining fundamentally comes down to your ability to run a machine, right? So let me give you a schema. The schema of all of mining is a box, a miner, and you need 3 things to run it. You need an Ethernet cable, so it has to talk to the network, it has to talk to the internet. You need electricity, you have to plug it into something, and you need to cool it. And those are all totally disparate ecosystems, or at least highly disparate ecosystems. So you're plugged into the Ethernet cable. What are you doing? I'm doing this hashing thing. What is this hashing thing? I'm constructing blocks, and then I'm kind of guessing on them really fast. Cool. That's like the Bitcoin-y part. That's like the cypherpunky, this is the beautiful, beautiful aspect of Nakamoto consensus. Like, that's the Bitcoin part. Okay, what's your second problem? Your second problem is an electricity problem. Well, it's kind of like an engineering problem. It's like a business problem. All right, where is energy? It's not equitably distributed across the world. It's not equitably priced across the world. Access to it is not equitable across the world. You can go to a 100 megawatt substation somewhere. You can go to your backyard and get 200 amps. And yet somehow those 2 people are plugging in Bitcoin miners, so what the hell's going on? That doesn't necessarily make sense on its face. Is one person better than the other? And then you have this third problem, which is that you have to cool this thing. The efficiency of this machine running is on the order of 99.999 whatever %, right? You know, you put a megawatt in, you get a megawatt out. It's hot. All right, well, now I have to cool this thing. So now I have a physics problem. So I need to hire a bunch of engineers. I need to hire a bunch of mechanical engineers that can explain to me what the hell I'm supposed to do with a continuous megawatt heat-producing system.
If y'all look at Tyler Stevens, he's foaming at the mouth right now.
Tyler Stevens, author of the Heat Punk Manifesto, with a forthcoming book from Brains all about this stuff from the engineering level, which is really fantastic.
Is that right? Are you launching some news there? Forthcoming?
I don't want to steal
Way
your...
to go, dude.
That wasn't the announcement. That was a...
Hey, just announce it, take credit.
Tatum told me he was going to do this.
I'm benefited that I'm he's a first principles thinker. I'm a pretty simple thinker. I think there's you need both of us in Bitcoin. If we're really just not knowledgeable of this process, we understand that a hash is happening a zillion times a second on everyone's machines. What's the time involved in building a block? Is that something? Do they have 10 minutes to build a block and then they guess, or do you? How much time does it take? And is it all an automated system that each mining company has set up? Could you give a base level on that?
I'm foaming at the mouth now.
You just said like all of our trigger words.
All my trigger words. Who knows what hashing is? Just by show of hands. Who knows what the heck the machine is doing?
Put your hand down if you're going to say
Gerbils, thank you.
complex math problem.
If you say complex math problems, I will jump these chairs.
I thought it was a contest.
Woosah. Woosah. So this is the blockchain. This is the blockchain. This is where all the magic happens, right? What chains it together is the hash of the previous block header. It's a hash. So it's a nice little compact chunk of data that has been spit out of the SHA-256 algorithm. Okay, well, what makes the SHA-256, well, it's really SHA-256 squared. What makes it so special? Well, it's a one-way mathematical function. What is a one-way mathematical function? It's like a giant wood chipper, and anything I put into it, it comes out as this nice hash. Everything that goes in comes out the same size. And there's a trick, because if I put the same thing in, the exact same thing, I get the exact same hash out. So anything I put a chair in, I get a hash out. Nice little 8x8 block. I put a different chair in, well, it has different atoms, it's a different chair. I get a different block, totally different hash. Okay, well, is there a way that I could guess, based on these blocks, what I put into it? No. That's the magic of the hashing algorithm, that it's one-way mathematics. Okay, so that's interesting. I have like a mathematical tool where instead of putting a chair into a wood chipper, I can put data into this machine, and I can spit out something that is deterministic, which is this data goes in, this is coming out, this is the hash. But I can't do it the other way. I can't kind of unstir the coffee once I've put the milk into it. So now I fill it with data. Forget about the hash of the previous block. That's just the block before it. We can go all the way back to the first block, but just assume that we're somewhere in the middle of the blockchain, right? There's this thing, this hash of the previous block that's spit out. I take that, I go, cool, what's a Merkle root? A Merkle root is basically just kind of a deterministic summed way of taking all these transactions and tidying them up. Thank you, Ralph Merkle. I did not explain it in the book that I wrote, the Bitcoin Miners Almanac, because I didn't want to. It was too technical, to be honest with you. And I was so sick of writing this section because it was very, very difficult. But it's a summary. It's transactions that get summarized into this beautiful little Merkle root. And it gets combined with the block of the previous header with some other data. There's some additional stuff that goes in there, timestamping, versioning, whatnot. And I throw it through my SHA-256 wood chipper, and I get this beautiful hash. And I go, okay, well, now what do I do with it? Well, that solves a security problem, which is that I took this stuff, I put it in a block, and I made something that I can't go backwards on. But now I have this problem where it's really easy to do SHA-256. So if I just want to crank that wood chipper all day, I can spit out blocks every second of the day. And I can clear the mempool. I can clear all those transactions as quickly as they can get them in. And then we can be BCH and be on block 7,400,000. But we're not doing that because we have this other magical thing that's happening, which is a difficulty adjustment and the inclusion of this thing called a nonce. The protocol looks at all this hashing that's happening and says, listen, I don't want just any hash. I get it. You know what the transactions are. You're going to run them through the algorithm. That's easy. I want you to sweat a little bit. I'm going to give you, if you imagine a huge mathematical space, approximately the size of our universe.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a region that I want you to guess a number, or I want you to guess in some kind of input that gives me a hash on the output that would be in that space. And we're talking on the order of like, find me a grain of sand in Earth. Like that's like the level of difficulty we're talking about. Like find me an atom in the universe kind of difficulty. Like win the Powerball 7 times in a row kind of difficulty. Like concurrently, not just like once, like 7 times in a row. So now you have this mechanism where, okay, well shit, I put the data in, I get this deterministic thing to come out. How am I supposed to get an output that's in this tiny little mathematical space if you just told me that the machine I put it into always spits out the same thing? Okay, well then you include this, let's throw some more data in. This thing called a nonce. It's a portmanteau, smushed up word. Number used only once. Here's what you do. Take the transactions, take the hash of the previous block header. By and large, that's not going to change. That's going to be essentially static. Sometimes high fee transactions are going to come in. Forget about them for a second. I just want you to pick another number, toss it in the machine with the rest of that data, and then see what comes out. And I want you to do that hundreds of trillions of times in a single machine. And then I want you to put 10 to 20,000 machines in a 1,000-foot long building with 100 megawatts powering it. And then when you guess a number, that spits out something that gives me a response in that tiny little mathematical space, I will reward you. And that's hashing.
Your miner is literally just guessing numbers really fast.
Really fast.
I swear to God. Damn. He really did.
But this is the magic. If somebody tells you like, oh, we're gonna go to proof of stake and it's gonna be awesome, man, understand what they have done. This is like the elegance of what Satoshi has done. And this is the whole shtick. This is the whole thing. This is the magic. The thing that they've been attacking us on for the last however many years. We're boiling the oceans and doing all these other terrible things. That's the sauce, dude. The sauce is that we take energy and we are not just any energy, we're taking the energy that you don't want. The vast majority of which Tyler will tell you is wasted to various heating purposes or wasted heat. We're taking all the stuff that you don't want and we are monetizing it. And it's unbelievable because Satoshi figured out this way that the whole trend of computers and computer science has been efficiency. How do I do this faster? How do I compact it? How do I access it more readily? How do I split it up in my little RAID array so it's even tighter and even more compact and I can query it even faster? And he did the exact opposite. He said, what if I just gave you something really hard to do? Something that computers only get good at by being more efficient at it. All you can do is guess. The whole optimal strategy of this game is to guess and to do it faster. He figured out a way to make computers sweat, which is unbelievable. And that's why Bitcoin is fundamentally different from everything else. And that's the very thing that they've been attacking us on, which is that we're boiling the oceans and we're destroying the ecosystem and doing us, the whales are mad at us. But what we're really doing is we're going and we're consuming every waste product that you have scattered across the natural earth. We're monetizing the waste products. We're adding efficiency to businesses that were previously not efficient. And we're doing it all out there. We're not doing it in the magic internet money thing. We're doing it in the ecosystem of mining, and that to me is what's really exciting.
I don't know how to follow that up, guys. I'm just gonna be real. Curtis, take it away, brother.
Bitcoin mining doesn't waste energy. Bitcoin mining uses wasted energy. Gentlemen, we had a second topic that I know we're passionate about. In fact, I learned from my friend. In fact, can I use this as an example? I want to point out the man in the corner, Tim. Tim is one of my colleagues who lives here in Denver. He's a student. He's actually a global logistics manager and is interning in a role with us at Compass Mining and has been my number 2 helping me facilitate these meetings. So Tim, I want to thank you personally for your work. Tim taught me how to use an Apple, and when we're time to pass the clicker to Rob, Rob's actually got a good number of slides we want to share. So I do think that we're probably okay to move to our second topic. We want to save time for questions at the end. I know we had a good conversation in advance. When it comes to thinking about block template construction, was there anything we left on the field? You knew this audience, you knew the topic. Did we say it all? Was there anything left to add?
I didn't open this can of worms because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to close it. But if y'all do want to talk more about centralization of block template generation and censorship and filters, hit me up and I'd be happy to radicalize you.
It's a real concern he's just glossing on. And again, I'm using a simplistic approach, but my basic understanding is that to build a block, it's reasonably complicated. And not every Bitcoin miner is doing it, so therefore they're farming out, whether to their pool or to maybe they build an internal team. But the people who are comprising these, building these blocks, it has become fairly centralized. Did I hit that right?
Yeah, the long and short of it is that whether you want to believe it or not, Bitcoin mining is centralized. It is trending towards decentralization, but Bitmain runs Bitcoin, and they are the ones who are offering all the templates that several of the pools that you see on mempool, are actually hashing. So it's all white labeling. Everything in mining is white labeling.
When
that's a big topic, but that's 100% true.
When Tatum and Rob said, "Oh, you hit my hot buttons," and Rob's like, "Don't call it this," like. you think about that boxer who goes into the ring and you can tell that he's undermatched for the guy he's about to go up to. Well, clearly we're not sparring, but it's clear to me that I'm out of my league here. We did have a second topic, which I think I am a little bit more familiar with, and what I wanted to talk about, specifically, Rob mentioned his book, and I think we'll hear more about it and share more about it later. But what does the evolution of the Bitcoin mining, hardware look like? We mentioned Tyler earlier. Tyler is neck deep into a heat repurposing, and there's a lot of elements that comes to, if you're going to start reusing Bitcoin mining heat, the form factor might change. So this was an important topic to me, but as we prepared for it, these gentlemen also wanted to take the conversation a little bit more into the stark differences between different types of Bitcoin mines. So I think that given your experience in this whole conversation, that I'm fine to just let's three-finger swipe, and we've got some photos.
That was a good swipe.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a PC guy, and here I am.
I still can't get over you saying he taught me how to use an Apple. That was great.
What's our
global logistics, baby? Global logistics. Yeah.
I love it. What's our time before? Because we're gonna go all the way down the
so
weeds.
we should talk for 30 minutes on this. It'll leave time for questions. If we go 20, 25 more questions, I do have a few slides at the end before we're done. So
brilliant. So that being said, every Bitcoin mine is doing the same thing, but every single Bitcoin mine is different. Shall we?
Yeah, it sure is.
This is where you're going to shine because you're, well, I don't know, I thought we could kind of figure out.
Sorry, I missed the cue.
We'll work on it. We have 30 minutes.
Listen,
Is this
the authentically awkward podcast or guest host is in vogue. So there's
now you'll know that
there
wasn't
it
a
is.
character. It was all me.
There we go. Okay, what kind of Bitcoin mine? This is a Bitcoin mine. What kind of Bitcoin mine is this?
Raspberry Pi.
You're cheating, but somebody said.
Go ahead.
Introduce us to this. What is this project? What is this? What am I looking at?
This is a BitX. It is a fairly new contender into the mining space. It's an open source miniature, quote unquote, lottery ticket miner, which there's some wiggle room there, but it runs off of a single ASIC. Which,
The
by the
ASIC
way,
is the chip.
Yeah,
right?
just want to clear the air because it's weird to think about this. If you hear ASIC, sometimes you'll think about the actual whole machine. I'm guilty of it too. It's actually ASICs on each board, and they're like that little tiny. So that's what I mean when we're talking about ASICs. There's a single one under there. The most recent ones are using the BM1370, which is the S21 Pro chip. So that right there will get you probably about a little over 1 terahash, which is...
And a terahash is how many guesses per second?
I knew you were going to ask that, and it always screws me up, but y'all know like mega, giga, and all that. It's...
Trillion.
Trillion, okay.
Yeah.
T-trillion.
So this single chip, and it's a toy. It's for fun. You don't buy it to hit it big. You buy it because you want to learn about Bitcoin mining, and the best way to learn about Bitcoin mining, if it was 5 years ago, you would buy some S9s, and then you'd be sleeping on the couch. Today, you can purchase a BitX, and a BitX can live on your desk, and it can mine. It mines Bitcoin. It does over 1 trillion guesses per second.
If you want to see a real one, there's when we leave, I just remember.
Just in the other room.
Yeah, we have one like running over there.
Does this consume a ton of electricity?
No.
Does this produce a ton of money?
No.
Am I ever going to unplug it?
No.
No, because it's fun, because it's ideological. This is an entirely legitimate way to mine, and there's a whole subset of people who are doing this in the open source community. Scott and the BitX project have produced all variations of this, all kinds of iterations. They do them with many chips, they do them with few chips, but it's a learning experience. And what's very cool about this is there's a lot of stuff coming out of the woodwork, coming through people just collaborating and figuring out, oh, what happens if I do it with 5 chips? How would I have to cool it then? Incidentally, you wind up just literally recreating the S9. But that being said, I think you should, while this is a quote-unquote toy or a lottery miner, you shouldn't discount what they're doing as far as contributions to the open source space, and you shouldn't discount what they're doing when it comes to contributions to things like various form factors for home heating, because that's an upswell part of the Bitcoin mining space that has been slowly developing, but developing nonetheless. And one of the big limitations is that they don't have the sort of open source tools to use until they have this project. So if you're gonna see a lot of groundswell, all of a sudden we're using, Bitcoin baseboard heaters, which Canaan just announced, by the way, 800 watts, 23.1 joules per terahash. Yeah, but 36. Pardon me?
Noise.
35 to 55 decibels, if I'm recalling.
Wait, is it 36 joules a terahash?
So not terrifically, and it can run on 110 or 220, which is interesting. Why am I shilling Canaan right now? It's like $900 on a pre-sale, but it's the first publicly traded company that's actually doing a heating deployment that is not like cypherpunked together, is not some modified other version of a machine, or is not something like a heat bit, which we have on the other side of the room. But Heatbit, again, is not like, they're not actually working on the silicon themselves. Like Canaan is actually they have the foundry space themselves, which is what makes it unique, right? So that's one way to run a Bitcoin mine.
Wait, hold on. I want to add one more quick thing about, or two things really. I recommend for everyone to get their hands on some sort of Bitcoin mining hardware, whether it just be a BitX or it be 3 S7s that some guy sold you for $40 on eBay, which is how I got started. Was I expecting them to work? No. I just needed two ASIC miners for my stupid TV show. Then I started playing around with it, and that's what really sucked me in. Just give it a shot. It's literally like, okay, what if it hits a block? One hit a block fairly recently, so it's not for nothing. It's just,
But the odds are like once every 7 to 900 years.
You definitely probably will not, but you could.
And it's nice to say you did.
Yeah, and also Scott 9000, one of the developers for BitX, is going to be here next month at the Heatbit Summit. So,
good plug. What are we looking at, Tatum?
Fog hashing. I learned about this when we were going over this for the presentation.
All right, show of hands. Does anybody know what a fog hashing unit is? Nice. Everyone who already works in Bitcoin mining. This is a home immersion deployment.
Oh, there it is.
This is ideological. This, you're gonna have to call a plumber or an electrician. What does it do? On the left-hand side, you have a tank. What goes in the tank? The miner. The miner goes in the tank. Then what goes in? The dielectric fluid. What is that? It's kind of like oil, like any kind of oil that you might have, except it won't burst into flames and screw up your insurance policy. You have a machine dunked in oil that is, the machine's getting hot because it's plugged in. It's producing heat. That heat is being ported away to this thing on the right. What's the thing on the right? Thank you, somebody knew that. That's beautiful. A dry cooler, what is that? It's a series of coils that then you run air over and it cools what you put it through. It draws you closer to ambient. That's awesome. Okay, why do I want this?
I don't want that. If anyone knows me, they know.
All right, I'll pick on Tyler. Why do I want this?
Heat your house.
How do I heat my house with this?
A radiator.
With a radiator.
Which
So
is a dry cooler.
I can run this dry cooler to ambient and I can just evacuate the hot air. Or, does anybody have a water heater in their home? I hope you do. I don't know who's like, this is Colorado. Somebody's living in the truck. You have you have 50 to 100 gallons of hot water perpetually consuming natural gas predominantly in the basement of your house. You could use the input of one system, which is the electricity, that then does the hashing and then produces an output, which is a waste product in this system, which is the heat. And that waste product can be the input of a totally disparate system, which is your home heating system. Because when I turn on the faucet, I like to have warm water, which means that I got to keep the water warm all the time. This is a deployment of a home version of something that adds utility. So here's another set of questions. Do I really care about making this thing as unbelievably efficient as possible? Do I have to buy a $10,000, the newest machine?
No.
Not really. And the reason I don't is because my waste product is recapturing costs on something that is already a sunk cost to me. I'm gonna pay my utility bill every month because I like having hot water. And because I was gonna do that anyway, I now have this offset situation where, yeah, I'm consuming more electricity, but then I am making money because of the value of the work the machine is doing, the hashing, and now my waste product has some kind of monetary value that is adding a negative number to this $100, $200 that I'm spending on my utilities anyway.
You're giving
Now the game has
yourself a
changed.
discount.
You're giving yourself a discount. Does it scale?
It does.
Yes and no. I hate immersion, dude. Stop asking me about it.
So typical limit is going to be your panel, right? 200 amp panel. You also would like to do laundry periodically, and there's stuff that needs 220. You're going to fill up your panel. Short of you pulling another panel to run miners on, a couple miners is a lot of heat. You probably don't need all that heat. If you're using it efficiently, you could heat a decent sized house with 2 or 3 well-positioned, well-run miners. We're not talking about 20 miners. That's an unbelievable amount. There was a guy a number of years ago who was heating his pool in the back and had all these tanks set up in his garage. And he was showing photos of it in the winter and through the summer, but in the winter it was more interesting because he would go outside and his multi-thousand gallon pool in his backyard was at hot tub temperatures perpetually. And sick. He had half a panel's worth of machines. It was 10 machines. It was not 50 machines.
Also, for reference, I did an experiment with a single S9 run fully stock. I went to on vacation and left it running in the middle of my 900 square foot condo in the middle of my office that had 2-sided open doors. We came back and it was 89 degrees in the entire apartment. And my girlfriend at the time was very mad at me, but I got answers to how much you can heat in that form factor. So you literally do not need much more than 1 or 2 miners depending on your house size.
Well, let me insert a commercial for hosting services because I running Bitcoin mining machines at home and staying married is difficult. So they are hot and loud and use a lot of electricity. It does take unique form factors in order for them to be able to easily fit into a home.
Which don't exist yet. Except for the Canon one, but I'm done showing it.
It's brand new.
Or you got to be excited about the brand new.
Yeah, literally, what,
We don't
24
even know
hours?
if it works actually.
Yeah, you never answered me if you can give me
What
one.
does Compass do to reuse the heat?
Is he a plant? Is he a plant?
Hey, I'll send you your money after this.
Shannon Squires, our chief mining officer, is in the audience, and I didn't need a Compass commercial, but we are trying to be a part of some international projects where the cities are directly connected to heat repurposing. They need heat to heat their entire community. So there are projects growing internationally, but as of now, at scale, we're not currently doing any heat repurposing. It's a massive passion of mine. In fact, I'm very excited for February 21st in this exact building. There's going to be a summit built around that. It's called Heat Punk, and I'm very excited for that.
So the other question I had is, when your apartment reaches 89 degrees, what do? Turn your miner off?
Yeah, and
That's
then
a
you
good
just
question.
turn all the fans on, leave the doors open, and just listen to someone yell at you for...
What I'm just saying is, though, if one of your purposes is to be a bit miner,
Yes.
house is hot. Oh, I got to turn it off. So that's
The guy sitting right in front of you has the forthcoming book from Brains precisely on this topic.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is the actual utilization factor. Because you don't use your furnace all the time. You're playing into the actual way in which the finances work. Does it make sense monetarily?
And the full answer, the short answer, I don't want to take
Please.
time, is they're computers, so you can control them with
Sure.
high precision.
clock them faster, slower.
Yeah.
But still,
Precisely.
when you clock them slower, you're not.
Yeah, you're going to adjust
making
your
less.
efficiency
So that's what
and
your goal is.
hash rate.
Precisely.
Yeah, exactly.
Precisely. Every Bitcoin miner has their own strategy. No two are created equal. You just segued it back. You are a plant. I love that. That was great. Who has heard by show of hands of gridless compute? All the miners. And a few more. Okay, where do they operate?
They're in Africa, and it's actually really, really interesting how the company came to be, because when I first heard someone mention Bitcoin mining in Africa, I immediately defaulted to preying on a bad infrastructure and trying to poach cheap energy.
Who's taking them at? Yeah.
But I was extremely wrong. The way that some of these developing countries work is that their power infrastructure is virtually none. And a lot of Africa, their main power source is a diesel generator on the back of every house, which is like top 2 worst ways to power your house, and it's not 2. But the reason they can't get that infrastructure is there's no economic demand that makes sense enough to put a hydro generator in a river or put that infrastructure into place until you insert a demand that is also monetized, like highly liquid. And so you create a mining farm in Africa where there's no very little electricity. Well, that's bringing that economic need and demand to put those systems in place to actually provide that power. And so everyone wins, whether they know it or not, because of Bitcoin mining.
That's really well said. And so the one thing I'll add to this, so Gridless Compute, started by a guy named Eric Hirschman. His handle on Twitter is White African. He's an African by birth.
And guess what? He's white.
And he's, hey, accurate marketing on the Twitter handle. One of the nicest dudes you'll meet in your entire life. He's an interview in the book, and he said something really interesting to me when we were talking about this, and he goes, listen, here's the deal. Exactly as Tatum explained, anytime you're going to try to get power generation to some remote village in some place in Africa, and there's a lot of rivers, not as many navigable rivers, which is like a very different historical problem, but there's lots of rivers, so there's the opportunity to put hydro in. You have this chicken or the egg situation where people are they go to an NGO or they go to like a large funding entity. They go to a large international bank or something like this, and they say, hey, we're going to put together this project, and we're going to put 5 megawatts on this river, and it's going to help this community. It's going to be wonderful. And then they go, okay, great. Well, we like the idea, but I need you to give me the projections for what the demand side of this equation is going to look like. And so the person who's proposing this project goes, oh, like people don't even have light bulbs in their houses. Like, what are you talking? Like, how am I supposed to? So then they start this like very elegant game of BSing to each other about how once you give me all the money and I'm able to install this generation, then it's sort of like a field of dreams situation. If you build it, they will come, and then they will go from the bicycle to the electric scooter, and the cell phones will be charged, and they'll start an internet cafe. And essentially what Eric detailed is that this is all kind of BS. Like, it's kind of fluffy BS, and then everybody does it till closing, and then they build the project, and it just never, the demand never happens. It never happens. Why? Because your consumers don't have any money. What are they going to buy to plug in? There's nothing to plug in. Like, there's no money. There's nothing there from the beginning. So what they do is they short circuit. They say, here's the deal. We can now go partner with these infrastructure projects. And when they look at us and they go, oh, well, you're going to build 5 megawatts. How many megawatts are you going to be using as soon as we commission? Eric looks at them and goes, 5. They go, how are you going to do that? Go, well, we're going to throw some computers, what's miner maximalists, into a container, and we are going to consume all that energy. And there's this great thing, Starlink, that's my Ethernet connection. I'm going to consume all your electricity. Well, what's going to happen when the townspeople want to plug in? You know what we're going to do? We're going to turn off. And so that's what they do. They serve essentially as a base load for this new resource that's in this community. They entirely change the cost recapture, the financing structure for these projects, and they do it in such a way where on day one, I actually need to hire some guys. Because I need somebody to work on this site. I need somebody who can master these machines. And then once it starts making money, now I have the capital to actually start running lines to people's houses so that they can plug the thing in, they can get the light bulbs, so that they can get the ports to plug in the cell phones and the charging. They're not having to do it in the town square. So it's a fundamentally different way of doing development where you are taking the demand to the project and you're now pushing out these NGOs in many cases, and you can do these projects with private money without all the strings attached and all the BSing of, like, as Tatum mentioned at the beginning, the risk of it looking like this project where you're simply going to go to a developing nation and rob them of their resources by some shady contracting, that's all of a sudden gone. You're working with oftentimes local money, which is what Eric has been doing.
Before we move on, because I'm passionate about this, I want to share a couple other layers of information. You heard earlier Rob mention that Bitcoin miner needed three things. It needed data, it needed electricity, it needed cooling. The reason that Eric, the founder of Gridless, with the name The White African, the way that he was able to enter into this market is that he built a massive cell phone network in Africa. I mean, like the whole continent, okay? So here in the United States, we had a landline system that was laid well and worked great. So we were late innovators in cell phone networks, but the continent of Africa did not have that landline network, and it actually built out exponentially faster. The African economy works off of a cell phone much differently than the US. So Eric, who pioneered this company, had previously built data systems across the continent and then recognized the gap, that there was data, but there was no electricity. And my last thing on this is that, can you imagine not having a light bulb, right? Could you imagine your child can't read at night because there's not a light bulb? Or what if you couldn't store food for a week, right? Because you didn't have a refrigerator. Bitcoin really can solve global energy poverty. And just like it takes Tyler and a team building for heat repurposing, it takes Eric and a team solving for energy poverty. So I'm so glad that you had this today.
Beautifully said. And Eric is absolutely a legend across the whole continent, to be frank with you. And now for something completely different. What are we looking at?
We're looking at the big boy. We're looking at Riot.
200 megawatts.
That's actually 400 megawatts.
400 megawatts.
What does that break down to? How many machines how many JPros?
Well, those aren't JPros. Those are immersion native What's miners. So the M.
Oh yeah, so that's.
Has anyone been to this site? Like, it's a proud moment of mine to have taken a selfie in front of that substation when you got grown men taking pictures of
with
themselves
infrastructure,
with electrical infrastructure. Now you know you're onto something.
If you're connected with anyone on LinkedIn who's into Bitcoin mining, you have probably seen them on the same background as every other person you're connected with, and it's that facility right there. So
this is the largest known single site Bitcoin mine on Earth. I say known because, like, let's be honest, there's something in China that's bigger.
we don't talk about
Allegedly.
Is it currently or it's gonna be?
Well, very good question. Will be, because the substation is either 1.2 or 1.4 gigawatts. I think 1.2, because I think it gets you to 1 effective. But there's a lot of stuff that happens between the substation and the actual machines. So what are we looking at? We're looking at tens of thousands of machines in multi-100-foot buildings. Inside of these buildings are rows of tanks. Those tanks contain machines. They have a different form factor from the ones you see on the top left because they're meant to be stuck in oil. They live in tanks that are serviced by 2.5 megawatt transformers. There's typically 40 of them per every 100 megawatt stretch of building. So multiply it by 4 and you have the number of 2.5 megawatt transformers that are feeding into this building. You have a very different infrastructure setup. So you have not only the tanks, but much like the fog hashing one, okay, let me go backwards. I have a thing in oil and I have a heat exchanger. This is the exact same thing. The only difference is now I'm using industrial scale pumps. I'm moving a lot more liquid and I'm using a lot more electricity. The fog hashing one is single phase, which is how I'm getting power and breaking it down to my house. If you're looking at, I need to stop going back and forth, you guys get it. These machines in here are consuming electricity 3-phase, which has some interesting pros to it that we won't get into. So it's huge. It's solving the physics problem, which is how do I consume hundreds of megawatts of electricity and evacuate it? That's happening through those rows of dry coolers that you see on the outside, same as the fog hashing dry cooler. The only difference is that this is sized to be in excess of 2.5 megawatts. So it's an immense, immense amount. We won't go into, these are actually plate exchanger based too, so they're also two double loop systems. but we're not getting into that. Water? But I had to tell Shannon. Yeah, it goes oil to water through a brazed plate exchanger, and then the water goes through there. There's a number of reasons you would want to do that, because now when we're at this scale, we are talking about things like series and parallel risks. So what are your failure risks across various systems? And so you're always playing this game of, okay, well, I have hundreds of dry coolers. Great. How many manufacturers do I have? Great. What is their warranty setup like? Shit. What happens when it gets below freezing and sits there for a little too long and you haven't glycolated your water properly? Uh-oh. You're now playing a very different game where you're working with multinationals, because these are like the Gunthers of the world, people that are producing these enormous infrastructures that are used all across the world. At any large infrastructure site that you would go to, you will find this sort of stuff. We just happen to be the weirdos that show up and go, can I have 50 of them? Can I have 100 of them? Can you like drop 20 at my site continuously for the next 8 months? We do that. And then we have, outside of the physics problem, the energy problem, the business problem. How do you buy energy at this site? Wholesale. Who do I buy it from? ERCOT, baby.
Yeah, there it is.
The Electricity Reliability Council of Texas.
I'm going to be honest, I've always forgotten what it stands for.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
ERCOT, you're buying from ERCOT. You are plugged into, if you want to know what the price of electricity is in Texas right now, you go to ERCOT's website, you're going to find it. So what's so interesting about what mega miners do?
Wait, before you go further, could you explain why ERCOT is specifically different from, why Bitcoin miners are drawn to Texas? Does that have to do with ERCOT?
Good
what
question.
Is ERCOT? Yeah.
So electricity, functionally, there are something like 3 grids in the US. Managerially, it's in the teens. And these are subdivided into RTOs or ISOs, which are regional transmission organizations, independent system operators. Thank you. Independent system operators. And these are essentially these like quasi-governmental operational structures that are these amalgamations of there are these blends of public-private entities that are providing electricity. They're doing everything from the generation of the electricity. So that's your various sources of electricity. So it's your nuclear sites, all of your thermal plants, your natural gas, your coal plants, your peaker plants, everything. Your wind, your solar. That all is kind of broken down into dispatchable and non-dispatchable, which basically means, can I call it and ask it to give me more electricity? A solar plant, no. A wind plant, no. I can't call a wind farm. It's here or it's not. That is blended in with all sorts of federal incentives and structures around pricing that give certain kinds of things priority, even though they're not really supposed to, because you're supposed to be able to all access the market because it's a commodity. So fundamentally, you have these regions, these quasi-governmental regions that aggregate in very bizarre and difficult to navigate ways that I'm sure you've never experienced participating in these large-scale mines, where in some of them, it's very hard to get access to huge quantities of electricity. And it could be because somebody's on a board and they don't like mining. It gets kind of governmentally and locally very, very quick. But when you look at ERCOT, things are done a little bit different, where they have allowed the price of electricity to be a free-floating market. For every grid that you have, you're going to have a grid operator, and their mandate is basically to, as best as they can, ensure that people are able to get the most reliable energy continuously at the most effective rate. So they're constantly playing this game of, all these people want to generate electricity on my grid. I have to deal with all these interconnects and all these nodes to get electricity to people when they need it at the right times, and you can price it through various mechanisms and slice it and dice it in all kinds of ways. But Texas is one of the few places where it is very much a Wild West, and you can see the price of electricity continuously and participate in it in a very different way. So what that means for Bitcoin miners is that if I want to go get 100 megawatts, and I'm looking to go get in a certain region, I want to go work with a large generator, I'm going to have to go through all these hoops and do all this jumping and this back and this forth, and I might get it done, but it could be extremely painful for me to go to Montana and get like 20 megawatts of hydro, right? It could be extremely painful, and I might need to like put somebody's cousin on the board of my company or something like this, right? When you go to Texas, because you know that you can participate, you have to pay obviously a certain amount to be able to get access to these things, which is just to be on the grid, but you can consume the electricity at a free-floating market rate. So you always know what the price of electricity is. So throughout the course of the day, and there's a megawatt cap, I think it's currently $5,000 per megawatt in ERCOT, intermittently, 5 times a year, 6 times a year, the price of electricity will go absolutely bonkers, and that means everybody's shutting off because they can see the price of electricity, and so they know their break even. Early in the mornings, at certain times of day when they're not high demand times, these guys are basically playing the markets. They're saying, what's the current price of electricity? What's the break even on our machines? Do I have some weather coming in? What's my service look like in my various parts of my mine? They're playing the markets. They're playing a very different game, and it gets even more complicated when you start buying large hedges. Because if you're an options trader and you're trading electricity, it is not often the case that you can take delivery of an options trade that goes south. But megamines and ERCOT have this very bizarre phenomena, this very bizarre capability, where they can make multi-hundred megawatt electricity trades and take delivery. Do you remember when the price of nat gas was like going south and everybody became a nat gas trader, but they didn't realize that the options were actually physically settled? So guys were buying like straight up tankers of gas and then freaking out because they realized they were going to have to custody it. This is a site that can do that. It can not just trade the actual current spot market with its own break even. This is when I'm profitable, this is when I'm not profitable. But it can now trade financial derivatives where it provides its own downside risk because it can consume it if a trade goes south against it. Which, if that's not like absolutely
That's called an infinite money glitch, baby.
If that's not mind-bending to you, I don't know what is. It's like one of the most insane things about these sites.
Well, guys, we're close on time.
We have 30 more slides, by the way.
And we're not going to get through them. Before we move off of Riot, I'm very concerned about local jobs. And what Rob mentioned earlier about the difficulty of, well, I need to buy 50 of those. This company that built this mine, they needed a large amount of electrical switchgear and components, and their solution was their vendor who was supplying them kept selling to other customers, and they said, that's not gonna work. They acquired that company. That is a local Denver company that is employing people building hardware, electrical infrastructure hardware to go into this mine. Bitcoin mining creates jobs. Guys, I know you have more slides. We do want to save time.
Let's do some questions, yeah.
So I think that, and then I do have a couple things at the end as well. So how about we try to stand for a couple questions? If we take a question, will you try to repeat it for the online audience since you've got those microphones? And again, thank you to Twitter and to the space for the live stream. It's amazing to know that last time there were 800 people watching. So questions from the audience before we get towards wrapping up?
Yeah, I think most of us are small miners, so this is interesting, but it's not really helpful. And so
I'm hurt. Damn. I'm hurt.
I mean, I'm not gonna. It's not what I'm doing. But I'd like to understand more from a mining operation. If I have 5, 10, 20, 24 machines, economically, you started mentioning pools, but something you said earlier is just one pool. Everything else is just sub-branded. How do I navigate that space?
So do you have 5, 10, 20, 25 machines?
Not yet, but I'm planning on it.
Where are you going to put them?
We got all the natural gas you can stand.
What county are you in?
Well, I have a standard natural gas. It's a small.
Are we?
We're not going to break hearts right out the... Depends what county you're in. There's a great company, Upstream Data, that does work in the space. Caruso, which is substantially larger, but they're not going to pick up your phone calls.
When you started talking about maybe just get a couple of mining machines and play with them and learn how to operate in all these pools and which ones are the best ones.
You're going to be like woefully disappointed once you, especially if you're planning on doing natural gas. The thing you're going to find out if you're doing mining off of natural gas is that the most important thing is your oil field services company, not anything else, because most people can't run a gen set, and if you're not running a gen, you're not making money. So it's substantially more important that you have guys that can handle the services side of things, even relative to the containerized side, because you can parse and slice it any way that you want. You're going to need a container, right? Let's pretend that we're on a well somewhere. you already know what your production schedule is going to look like. You're going to size your engine to it. You're going to have to figure out what the duty cycle of the engine is. That's not a Bitcoin problem. You're going to buy Starlink. You're going to be stuck once you know the MCF of that well. 12 MCF is going to get you about approximately 50 kilowatts, right? So that's like a small block Chevy, like a V8. That's not a lot of machines. It's not a lot of machines.
Well, I'm hoping to get like 30 MCF, but I got to go through and do some measurements and find out the quality of the gas.
I'll add some context. I'm out in the field, and one of the things that I would say is that although Bitcoin mining is hard, in fact, Shannon wrote an article for Mining Disrupt that it wasn't meant to be hard, but it effing is, right? Although Bitcoin mining, it's not that difficult. If you're already an oil and gas producer, you can do this. This is entirely inside of your skill set to turn your resources into Bitcoin. So I really encourage. There's Shannon, did you have a question or additional context to hit?
No, it's just that the concept of like we guys talked about the block templates, right? We found out that all the people are essentially white labeling block tickets. So all the pools you look at, you got J pool and you got Brains and you got
F2
Ocean now, F2 pool, Ant pool. I don't know, Luxor sells a pool, Foundry has a pool, Marathon has a pool. There's a bunch of pool options, right? Almost all of them, except for one again, which is how it was before, use the exact same payout method. And now we have Ocean using an old payout method that hadn't been used in a while. And so,
Amended.
For the most part, and then the reason the block templates, one of the reasons it becomes the same, the reason everybody copies them, is because Bitcoin miners are greedy. We're spending electricity. We're taking a real world asset and having to expend it. It costs me money that I have to work for to spend electricity. Like getting that gas out of the ground costs something. Mineral lease, the people that operate the gen set, all that kind of stuff. You have to spend real money to do that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to do that, I want to get as much value out of my block as I can, right? And so I don't want to put transactions in there that are free, right? I love that I have gotten transactions on Bitcoin that are free. I've sent Bitcoin for free. And I've seen very low fee transactions get picked up by pools for whatever reason, but I want my pool to select the most expensive transactions possible first. I'm greedy. And so if they do that, and all of the pools are trying to be greedy, they're gonna try to grab the highest paying transactions first, right? And then those are gonna get processed, which is gonna make a lot of the blocks the same. And so a lot of miners think about that. There is other things with block construction that needs to be looked at as far as organization is how we're guessing nonces and some different things like that. And, being able to, some of those pools are censoring transactions, some
Tell me
aren't.
more about that. Why are they?
Hey, let's talk
It's a
about
good
this.
question.
We're we try to have the building for about another 45 minutes after we're done here, and that's going to allow time to continue the conversation. I know we're leaving some things on the field. They have more slides, but we are up at the end.
Now forget the slides. We can do
I'll
questions.
talk to you for 3 hours
Let's
after
do
this if
questions.
you want to.
Are there? Can I have a quick?
Yeah.
Let's save questions for after we wrap. The live stream wants to wrap at 8:15, etc. So let me move back with my 3-finger.
He's using that.
Oh, you gotta
Apple,
keep
man.
going.
Oh, he didn't miss
There you
it
go.
up. There we go.
There you go.
Good job.
There we go.
Well done.
Tonight's topic was facilitated around the guest speakers and the experts that we had. When you come back next month, there's going to be a different vibe and a different topic. So if you're getting started in using your natural gas, if you're already plugging in thousands of miners, if you're an independent system operator, this is the right room for you. So thank you everyone for being here. I want to point out a couple things.
Hand him your microphone.
I'm all right.
Oh.
It's fine.
Okay, cool. All right.
I want to point out a couple things. Thank you. I want to point out a couple things as we wrap up. If you want to hear more from these gentlemen, they have both recorded wonderful podcasts on the Compass Mining channel. Rob's has been one of our best consumed this year. Tatum is a vibrant force in the space, so check out those podcasts. Earlier, Rob mentioned his book. Have you guys seen or read this book yet? Okay, well, what I want to ask is if you would allow me, I brought with me 15 copies, and I would like for you to make sure that you pick up one of these copies. I know that you can, like when you're an author, you can get author's copies. I didn't want to do that. I went right to Amazon. I paid full price. I said, get them here.
Get her on Rob
so
tonight.
do me the favor. Take home a copy of this book, and I think if you want some extra juice, honestly, his podcast episode with us, with Jarrett Carpenter on our team, is really amazing. So please see me and let me hand you one of these copies right after this.
Review to just juice it up.
So, yeah, I'm moving through my slides a little bit. I also want to thank the caterers. So they are a local Denver company doing catering. The gentleman's already left the food, got it packed. Let's have some extras, but you can grab that information right there. Thank you to Easy Entrees for this. And then I have one last thing in my little goodie bag. Have you guys seen this card game, Shamaree? Okay, this is a game designed to teach you or your friends or family about Bitcoin mining. We also had them on our podcast. We're giving these away free to our customers. All they have to do is enter the code and they get one. I brought 5 copies of these, and if you're interested in learning more about Bitcoin mining, this is a lot of fun, and I hope that you'll take one of these home from me as well. So
I also interviewed him. I just want to throw that out there.
All right. We will see you. A part of a good Bitcoin meetup is consistency. It's ending on time or within the minute so that you can have a predictable schedule, and it's about having great programming. We will see you next month. Will you please greet my guest? Thank you very much.